In the tunnel.
In the tunnel.
In the tunnel. You're listening to In the Tunnel.
Hello and welcome to In the Tunnel, episode number 69.
Jokes. We move on.
Yes.
We're above that. We have not made a single joke in the preparation of this episode, and we will continue to forge through without making a joke for the duration of this episode.
Alright, so let's get straight to it. So, aside from if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see we have new backgrounds that we're testing out. Please let us know what you think in the comments.
Yes, as a podcast called In the Tunnel, we have worked extensively hard over the past few months, and actually probably over the course of the past year. We thought about changing graphics, and then for a good portion of it, didn't do anything except for say that we needed to, and in typical mid-20-year-old fashion, we procrastinated.
But we have some redeeming qualities. Over the past week and a half, we really doubled down on it and got some new ones done.
Correct, we have. And this is a layout that we have two, I think, that we're using tonight.
Yeah.
Our plan is to have a setup of more than two, though. So we're looking to have a package, of sorts. So let us know how it works. Let us know if you like the fonts, stuff like that, because we're trying to make this more kind of like a subway tunnel kind of feel. Despite the fact that it's still sports, the tunnel theme, at least for older graphics, was kind of hard to work with, because it seemed like an underground abandoned tunnel.
Yeah.
Whereas we're trying to make it look like there's an audience here to this in our graphics. So we're working through that too. And if you're a hockey fan, a little bit of a timely joke here. We're trying to do a better job of broadcasting ourselves than the commissioner did today, when he had a press conference and put a hockey goal in his shrubs.
Yep.
In the background, because apparently that's what you do when there's no sports, is you take out your 6 foot by 4 foot steel beam hockey goal and you put it directly in a plant.
Right. So, without further ado, the first thing we're talking is the NHL.
Correct. Great segue, Sean.
Thank you, I tried. Anyway, so the big news is that we know when things are at least starting to happen for the NHL, right? So the training camp starts on July 10th, but they can have home practices, right?
Yeah, a lot of clubs are having home practices now. By home, it means like training facility or where they would normally practice.
Right.
I mean, I imagine that there are some teams that train in their own arena, but I feel like the Florida Panthers don't have a training facility, for example. I could be wrong there. I just don't see the funding going to both places.
Right.
So, in that sense, they would practice in their arena. So, the way that it works is that only 6 players at a time can practice at once. Keep in mind, there's 4 lines.
But that's basically like 2 forward lines.
No, it's like 1 line of like full 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goalie.
And a goalie, right? Yeah.
So all of a sudden, who are you practicing against? So there's been some videos which we can't unfortunately put into our PowerPoint-based graphics, or at least we probably could have, but we didn't. Where, they have kind of like how a basketball player has a kind of like dummy that they practice against. So they are, I think it was the Dallas Stars I saw a video of. They have stationary guys that like the
basically.
Kind of, yeah, in front of the goaltender in the near face-off circles on each side of the wing.
Right.
Practicing against that, but there's only so much effect that you have here.
Why don't they just put one of those like hockey trainer things over one of the nets and then play 3-on-3 as practice?
Oh, but here's the thing: have you seen a hockey trainer that isn't made of mesh? These are NHL players. They would rip through one of those like on the second shot.
Yeah, true.
If not sooner. I just have to give the training device some kind of durability. So I go for the second shot.
But hold on. If they're hockey players, they should be able to aim, right?
You would think. Connor Sheary misses the net every time. So, there's some players that are just not great.
All right,
also,
okay, so let's say that's the first thing, right? But let's get to like some of the guidelines as they come back with like how they have to conduct themselves, like with testing and all of that.
Professionally, they have to be professional, Sean.
No, like COVID testing.
Okay, I got you. All right, so it's like this. So the clubs must administer a separate temperature and symptom check at the club facility's entrance each time that players enter. Nothing wrong there. I work at a hospital. I do pretty much the same thing.
Uh-huh.
So nothing wrong there.
Okay. So the next thing is a nasal swab test, right?
Yep.
And they have to be swabbed, was it 2 days before training begins, which will be July 10th?
2 days before training begins.
So July 8th at a minimum, right?
Yep, July 8th.
And then twice a week
right?
For after.
Right, which for training camp, I understand twice a week. I feel like it's going to get ramped up even further up once games start, though.
Okay.
Actually, no, because if training camp, we see more players that are essentially a full team practicing together.
Yeah.
I feel like 2 days a week might be a little on the lowish side because you're now introducing.
That's a lot of variability,
especially
right?
with the AHL canceling their season. Because of the practice squads and stuff like that, I feel like you're introducing not even just a regular NHL roster, but an expanded roster.
Yeah, because you have to take into account the people who aren't going to show up, like they live overseas or whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then B, the fact that there has to be an expanded roster because you want if for any chance somebody gets injured, you want the players right there.
Mm-hmm. So my only thing with players overseas for right now is it's still kind of hard to travel with what's going on.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard, especially overseas, to want to travel that far. So my thinking is a lot of players are probably already here or in their home or playing cities because they probably want to get that over with before July 10th and give themselves a 14-day period that they're going to need.
Right, but what I'm saying is that some people in those away cities are going to decline. Even some people who are just there are some players who are just going to decline. No, playing.
Oh, decline playing for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's like NBA level.
Oh, no.
And we'll touch on that in a bit, but and I say NBA level for a number of different reasons. We'll touch on one of them, but the other one is, there are players in the NBA who have I'm sure in the NHL too, have weakened immune system, stuff like that. So, there are going to be certain declinations. We just don't. I don't think I've read of any people declining in the NHL yet.
I thought I saw one.
Okay. I admittedly have not really been searching for it, but normally certain apps are good at reminding me and telling me that.
Right. Okay, so we've covered testing, but now the big thing though is if a test comes back positive, right? Mm-hmm. And that will be up to local health regulations though. So like in PA right now, do you know what the regulation for going into contact with COVID is?
I think it's pretty much self-isolation, and if you're basically at a point where you're having trouble breathing at that point, go to a hospital. But fun story is the hospital where I work at, if you are coming in with COVID, they need you to call the hospital's emergency department ahead of time so that they can prepare for that.
Yeah, okay.
So that you don't come in contact with people.
They're just not automatically prepared at like the emergency room entrance?
So the thing is they've shut down certain units because of having to close down and restrict staff because of the economy, and because of stuff like that, and also that they've allocated only a certain number of units and rooms to handling those patients.
Okay. Okay,
so keep things kind of isolated so that it doesn't grow.
Yeah, but I mean, the bigger point is like it depends on where you are or where the team is for how they have to handle it, right? So we'll see. I mean, I still think twice a week is a little on the long. Like you have a potential of being 4 days between a test, right? And
at least 4 days,
hours. Huh?
At least 72 hours, I'd say.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you do twice a week, you're going to say 1, then 3, and then 1, then 3 days in between, right?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the days. If it's like Tuesday and Friday or something like that, then...
Yeah.
There's really... Because practices can happen any day.
Yeah.
It's not just Monday to Friday.
So, yeah, you're looking at like 3 to 4 days in between a test, and... if they have to conduct contact tracing, right? Mm-hmm. That's a lot of people they're going to be in contact with for 30 days.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Also, the one thing I will bring up is, there's always a weird rule when a press release or something, regulations are put up. The NHL's is that the players must perform daily self-administered temperature and symptom checks at home before heading to the team's facility, of which we discussed this a few days ago.
Yeah.
How is the NHL going to enforce that at all?
They're not. They can't.
So, I mean, especially because at this point, asymptomatic tests that are being done at the facilities are going to be way more accurate than checking at home.
Yeah, I mean, if you're checking at home, you have to be symptomatic, right? You cannot be asymptomatic.
Exactly.
And that's the bigger problem. Indeed. Because, you might not get symptoms, immediately, right? Mm-hmm. So, you still have all that time you have to trace.
Exactly.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about with hockey aside from the hockey net in the commissioner's bush?
No, that really was enough for me to text you about it, and that speaks volumes. Because, I mean, Gary Bettman is something else.
That really was something else, dude.
I don't understand that guy.
What the heck? Why put a hockey net there? All right, on to our next sport, which is the NBA. As we mentioned before, the NBA has its own issues with players not wanting to show up, so let's get straight to it. You want to...
Yeah, this was a hard one for me to take. Although I guess not, because I really don't care about the NBA that much. At this point, I will gladly take the NBA as a sport to watch. But I understand and would agree with players wanting to do what's being talked about, which is potentially sitting out the Orlando rest of this or resumption of the season because of the world issues with the protests and the change in racial equality needing to happen.
The world's issues or the U.S.'s issue?
I'm not going to speak on behalf of anything more than the U.S.'s, but at the same time, it's hard to believe that this happens nowhere else.
Well, I mean...
There are terrorist groups in the world.
Yes, but
that basically go after certain designations.
My only point is the amount of uprising that's happening specifically in the U.S., right? Not necessarily speaking for the entirety of the rest of the world. It's like just like this is the NBA. It's played in the US, right? So
correct.
I'm only trying to focus on what's happening around it.
Correct, but outside of soccer, the NBA, and I'd say this, the NBA as a league, as a sports league, is probably the most global sports league.
That is
including European soccer. So
I still think soccer is more global.
I think soccer as a game, but not a certain league. I'm saying the NBA as a league is the most global. Because
I think basketball is like the second tier of global sports, but
right. So, but the effect that they have is global in terms of the messages that they send.
Okay, yeah.
So in that sense, they're trying to reach more than just the United States. Whether they're trying to or not, they are.
Okay.
So we have Kyrie Irving of the Nets, Dwight Howard of the Lakers, and Donovan Mitchell of the Jazz as the three notable players at this point that we do know are against playing out the rest of the season because of the timing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, I'm not going to touch on that. It's a touchy subject. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I personally am for all racial equality because why the hell not? What really do you have to lose by treating anybody with the same respect you would want? But some people have different narratives and opinions on that, and it's really not worth my time to try to argue it.
Right.
Because I don't need to spend my time on those people with lost values and outdated beliefs. Now, that being said, with the NBA, the Los Angeles Clippers guard Patrick Beverley, noting how marketable LeBron James is, how he basically is the number one player.
He's basically the face of the league, dude.
Right, exactly. Thank you. That was essentially what I was looking to say and failed to capture those exact words. But how it works with that is that he, understanding the business of the NBA, says he believes if LeBron James wants a resumption to the season, they'll give a resumption to the season. Now, obviously, LeBron James is not in the boardroom testifying for this stuff to happen. But I think, if LeBron were to issue a statement through Twitter or something like that saying that he was ready to play basketball and finish what he started, that the NBA would follow. And it's hard to really argue against that even right now. The other top-tier superstars have been relatively quiet on the issue. Like Giannis Antetokounmpo is probably the number 2 player in the league, but you don't really hear from him in a social media kind of atmosphere.
Right.
So LeBron markets himself outside of the game just as much does in the game. Mm-hmm. So what you would see from the NBA probably is a cause and effect based on their most marketable players' opinions, beliefs, reactions. So,
right.
And then let's see here. In addition to the news about Kyrie potentially sitting out, apparently he was one of, I guess, someone from The Athletic, and I will say that to give credit because we took it from an article I read, stated that Kyrie Irving hosted a conference call of more than 80 players last week to address the league's return plan, and it was at that point that Donovan Mitchell was one of the players who spoke up about it, as well as Kyrie Irving, and I guess, Dwight Howard would have added in a different way.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think it was great that he did that, where you get a bunch of players together and talk about it.
Mm-hmm. I mean this purely in comic relief, and I understand I'm towing a line here. Kyrie Irving has seemingly had a really interesting year in that he's only played 20 games with the Nets.
He got hurt.
Injuries and also other personal stuff.
Right.
So he's had an interesting first year with the quote-unquote team he grew up rooting for because he grew up in New Jersey.
The New Jersey Nets, dude.
The first year that he spent with the team that he always wanted to play for as a kid has not been great. So every time you see headlines with him in this first year with the Nets, not really being eager to play for this team that he supposedly wanted to play for as a kid, is really kind of a stale look, especially because he's supposed to be there for another 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my only drawback with this, is I'm all for the players speaking their mind, but Kyrie Irving has probably had the most up and down. Other than the injuries, he seemingly has had a lot of reasons for not doing stuff this year.
But I mean, when you encounter situations like this, I'd kind of prefer that he's speaking his mind right now. And
yes,
I think the scale of the issue, or at least the scale presumed to people by these issues, mm-hmm. has some effect, right?
Right.
And when you're looking at something at the scale that it's things are happening about it right now, this is not something you can be like, hey, he's kind of skivved off his duties for a little bit, so he's not going to skiv off him here, right? No.
And by all means, I'm not saying that he shouldn't speak his mind or have a message or anything like that. I'm just saying his first year with the new organization has not been great. It would be a shame for his year to end without some kind of way of fortifying and justifying all that has happened for him this year.
I think with the injuries, at least, you kind of write off this year. He's supposed to be with the Nets for a bit longer. So, mm-hmm. especially with the season kind of just blatantly stopping, him getting injured, I think you kind of write off this year instead.
His injuries were in the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Not recently, as far as I know, but then again, I was never really paying attention.
Yeah, but still, a lot's happened. His injuries were part of it, but his, I mean, it's not easy. You're playing a season, then it just, abruptly stops due to COVID. and now they're talking about coming back, right? So like this whole season's gonna have an asterisk against it anyway. So I'm of the opinion, like, I don't really care about this season. Let's go next. Like, I'll worry about next season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Any closing remarks for basketball?
Just bring it back.
All right. On to everybody's.
I mean, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. On to everybody's favorite subject, though, the MLB.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go through a little bit of a story, I guess.
All right. This is like a tale of two cities meets something way too long.
All right. So.
Not that I've ever read that book.
All right. So. Let's go. This is back like 3 days ago now. It's
all 3 days ago.
Huh?
When the drama hit.
Yeah. So basically, the players, they're like, hey, okay, so we want the fullest season possible. It makes sense. They want, right? And they want the fullest season possible. And safely is a big concern, right? And they're saying that they've agreed to billions in monetary concessions. Mm-hmm. And they have been basically slandered with media leaks and misdirection.
Right. As is normal.
Yeah. And now
especially given that it's a union versus the league for which it plays for.
Yeah. And then, so now they're saying, the owners are basically saying, hey, it's unprofitable to own a baseball team.
Which, that's exactly why you get in the business of owning one.
Yeah, I know, right?
All those ownership groups who were somehow able to bring other people in and pitch them the idea of, as a group, collectively owning a team because it would make everybody so much poorer.
Right.
That's just the way that business works, right? You sell people on getting into the stock market as it's about to crash.
Right. And so they're saying, like, the owners and baseball commissioner have basically are threatening a really super short season unless players agree to hundreds of millions of dollars of more concessions. They claim it's unfair or it's unwarranted, and they continue to ask for what's the national televising deal and all that, but apparently they've never been provided with it.
The details of it, you mean?
Huh?
Of the details of it, you mean?
Yeah. And
which is just insane because the NBA's broadcasting deal pretty much expanded the salary cap so large that the players were never unaware of it. Yeah. In fact, a lot of the players held out for more money.
So they say that they're not going to talk to the league anymore until they just say, okay, we actually want to negotiate. All right.
That's how things work.
Yeah. So you want to take the side of baseball?
Way to, lovely of you to deal me with the asshole card, but
oh yeah, dude, I have the controls. I get what I want.
Let me prelude this a little bit too, because this actually goes back before our graphics say of what was it, June 13th. So this goes back before then, when Dummy of the Year candidate Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, basically went on the record and said that he 100% guarantees that there's going to be a season this year. Yeah. And that'll come back. We don't have a graphic for it yet. At least in this episode. But that will come back into play because of what happened today. But we'll get to that in a second. Let's get to the 13th and what happens yesterday. So the MLB's side, as of the 13th of June, was that they were disappointed in the Players Association and that they had not chosen to negotiate in good faith about resuming a season. So, and that the MLB, in all of their innocence, had made 3 proposals that would give the players and clubs and fans what they deemed an adequate solution and an adequate length season, which, let's be honest, there's plenty of times to give more than 50 games. Fans want more than 50 games. So that was the most recent proposal by the MLB, was 50 games. The Players Association understood the agreement reached on March 26th was premised on parties' mutual understanding that the players would be paid their full salaries only if play resumed in front of fans. Okay. Right then and there.
I want to actually know what the language of that agreement says, because I don't trust this news release.
I don't trust this at all. The balls to think, as the nation is being told to stay at home, that a sports organization and league can say that they negotiated that their full prorated salaries would only be paid in front of fans, and essentially risking hundreds of thousands of people's lives on a daily basis. To say that they're only going to pay players if they can pack stadiums, which for like a third of the teams they don't do anyway.
Yeah.
So that was one part of it. And that then they go on to say that the Players Association's position that players are entitled to virtually all the revenue from a season this year if played without fans is not fair to the thousands of other baseball employees that clubs and offices are supporting financially during this difficult 2020 season. Okay, fair enough. I can work with you on that. Somewhat.
Okay.
There's going to be no paying of concession based employees because there's going to be no fans. There's going to be no paying of ushers, no ticket gate people, no security, or very limited security. There's not going to be a need for a lot of the day-to-day operations,
right?
Pay outside of the front office. So and those guys are under contract.
Uh-huh.
So the MLB said, we will evaluate the union's refusal to adhere to the terms of the March agreement, which at this point, when you read this, sounds like a lot of bullshit. And after consulting with ownership, determine the best course to bring baseball back to our fans, which is great. You don't want to consult with the side that you have a problem with. You just want to consult with the owners, who are basically kind of fueling the narrative that they're the biggest, innocent people here.
So my problem is in the MLB PA press release and in this press release, there's two things that are brought up, right? So the MLB is saying that the players want all of the 2020 revenue, and the MLB PA is like, well, we don't know how much of the 2020 revenue we want because we don't know how much you're making from TV.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. Which is funny because they
basically all the revenue.
They waited long enough that ESPN said, screw it, we're going to show Korean baseball at 6 a.m. on the East Coast.
Right.
So basically, and again, it was at a time where they couldn't bring the MLB back. Mm-hmm. That part we understand fully. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, they weakened their value by waiting long enough already.
Yep.
So their broadcasting deal, rights, profits, all that stuff is something that they had more control of, but decided to wait. And now, because of that, they lose more control. You would think that 30 owners or ownership groups would know business well enough to know that you stand to lose more money the longer you wait.
Yep.
and yet somehow they keep waiting and putting things off.
That's all they're doing. Okay. And finally, yesterday...
well, not finally, because of what happened today. But yes,
okay,
next
but
step.
Last graphic, then we get into more, okay? So, the MLB, in a letter, apparently told the MLBPA that there will be no 2020 season unless the players waived any legal claims against against the league, which would mean that they cannot file grievance.
So now what we're looking at is them basically saying, not only because of a labor dispute are we not going to bring people off the street, fill the uniforms, and have any kind of game, which, yeah, it would be better than nothing. It would be a drop-off.
Are you kidding? I wouldn't watch that, and I barely watch baseball.
I'd watch it for the fucking comic relief. I'd watch it to say, I'm only 3 steps away from this.
Not even, dude. You'd probably be able to.
I'd watch this to say, hey, I never watched high school baseball when I was in high school, but why not start now?
Dude, you could probably watch it and say, hey, dude, I fit right in with these players. I could be playing in the MLB.
Exactly. We might sponsor MLB baseball if it's like, amateur hour at MLB for this year. But it would be better than nothing. And now the fucking MLB, and this is how, the MLB has always worked in such an outdated fashion where the game in the sport has always been like 40 years behind any other league.
The other problem, so the biggest problem that the MLB is having also is the fact that out of the 4 major sports in America, they are on the losing end.
And also because of the 4 major sports in America, they let me put it this way. They were the last ones to shut down with training camp and stuff like that. So in theory, they would, and especially because baseball is a game that is most prepared for social distancing, it was primed to be the first sport to come back.
Yeah.
Without a question.
Yeah,
they had
injuries in baseball.
They had the easiest setup in the world.
Also, injuries in baseball are mostly like superficial ones. Mostly like, pulling a leg when you slide and reach too hard, or getting hit with the ball, right? If you're a pitcher, you hurt your hand, but it's not going to cause bleeding or anything. So the injuries that they have to face for players in baseball is nothing like, going out there on ice with freaking blades that can chop your head off, or going into a football uniform where you're literally ramming heads with another guy every down.
That's the crazy thing is, as outdated as the NFL has been with player safety, they somehow advanced the league and their thoughts and standards on player safety before the MLB has seemingly caught up with today's world.
And the problem is, if they don't, they're going to continue to lose fans. MLB is declining in fan viewership.
And the fact of the matter is, they're probably heading now towards a labor dispute, and I think the CBA is up after next year or something like that.
I think
so. This is great because in terms of trying to grow the game, you're looking at 2 potential stoppages within a 1.5-year span. So say you cancel this year's season, you have 1 season in between where the players probably are not going to be happy with what happened last year and hold that grudge over the team's heads. And then you're going to have,
you're looking at an extended lockout.
Say a lockout the next year after that.
You're looking at an extended lockout. Not just last time they had that big of a lockout, they had a 50-some game season or whatever.
But that's proposing that now.
Yeah,
as is, without the year and a half of other shit to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's probably what would happen after this year if they successfully came back in negotiation.
Right. The other thing is, if you think that it's hard for these owners to make money now, imagine what it's going to be like when they cancel this season and get no profit from that, and then in a year and a half turn around and do the same fucking thing.
And
they're going to say, you know what? We probably had a good chance to make money back then because it would have been something.
But okay, my biggest problem with this is like waiving potential grievances is big because especially with all these safety precautions coming in for this pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. You're basically saying, hey, we're going to trust that you've done everything right with this, even though it's completely new, and we're not going to be able to file anything against you, which is completely bonkers.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, look, I get that the
MLB
right has to do this. I get that the MLB and the teams have to cover their ass to a certain standpoint, but it seems like for what they're trying to cut back the number of games to, they're still trying way too hard to cover something up. This is like a prenup before a fake marriage.
But to be fair, like I'd probably watch like in a 162 game season, right? That's how many games are played.
Oh yeah.
I'd probably watch like 10 games. But if the season was like 48, 50 some games long, I'd probably watch more of it. Because each game matters more.
Two teams every week have to play like all double headers, like for 5 days a week for just like 1 week a season. I would pay attention for that at least 2 weeks.
But my point is that like the MLB is in a weird predicament where it's losing viewership but also has the longest season. So losing viewership really hurts because like you're losing that one viewer 160 some odd times. Whereas like the NFL has like 19 games season, 20 games, right? For some teams. And the NHL and NBA are like, hey, 82 games, it works. And it does because there are enough teams that they're not constantly being hounded. Like I'll watch the full series for Yankees Red Sox. But will I really sit there every day, 4 days in a row, watching the Yankees play the Chicago White Sox?
Chance.
No way.
It's just ridiculous.
I think this is gonna, like, if they did get a 50 or even if they halved the damn season, I think it's a lot more bearable to the average viewer. But like, it's never gonna come to that because they're not gonna realize until it's too late. They're 40 years in the past.
Well, yeah. So let's get to the part from today. If you want to switch up to our other graphic here, because we're now done with graphics for this because of what's going on with this. The other layout.
Oh yeah.
Sorry about that. So anyway, and that we'll keep that in. That's just for people who pay attention through the video. So today I went through Twitter at work, and relatively easily so, verified user saying MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred is now saying that he's not optimistic about a return of the season.
He actually said that yesterday on an interview with ESPN.
Okay. Well, it got big, I guess, today or this morning. So the thing is about that is this is the same man that, as I said in our prelude to all this stuff that happened June 13th, said 100% there's going to be a season.
Right. He literally
and now
just went
has
back out that
has pulled it back and is saying that he's not certain that there will be one. And that he's blaming the Players Association.
Right.
For that. And, the fact of the matter is, and we found this out from reading some articles earlier this week, is in that March agreement between the MLB and the Players Association, that the Players Association essentially gave the commissioner the ability to unilaterally schedule a season of any length as long as the players receive full prorated salaries. So that's a big thing there.
Yeah.
The negotiations between the Players Association and the league have been centered around giving 70-80% of prorated salaries.
I mean, it went as low as 50% at one point.
Right. In exchange for more games. And the players rightfully have said, we're taking prorated as it is. Stop trying to cut it back even further.
And that's why they say...
they're still taking less.
And that's why they said... That's why their response was, tell us how many games will be there.
Right.
Because the commissioner
That's why all the players are saying, tell us where and when.
Yeah.
So then to expand on that, the MLB believes the March agreement allows the league to seek another round of pay reductions to account for games played without fans, which the union has rejected. So they consider the salary matter closed. So the Players Association says, full prorated salaries, we're done with that part. So the thing is here, and what's being perceived that the Commissioner Rob Manfred is doing, is by saying that at this point in time, they can't schedule a season and that they're uncertain, is they're playing a game here.
Yep. Because
the commissioner has the ability to schedule essentially, of whatever length they want.
Yep.
So the MLB, at the end of the day, after conning their way through negotiations and being very selfish with the ownership groups and stuff like that, they're essentially going to get what they want anyway. Because the Players Association has said, you guys aren't acting in good faith, but you know what? There's fans. We want to play. Give us something. And now the MLB is going to push this back long enough until they get the 50-game season that they wanted anyway.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the MLBPA is saying, you can schedule a 50-game season, just give us our damn salary. Which, 50 games is a 30% salary for an entire season.
Right, but the thing is that if the Players Association said, tell us when and where, and the MLB turned around and said, yesterday, today, whatever, anytime this week, when and where, you'd still be looking at a 70-some game season. That's another...
But no, because the MLB can't afford it. Right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The MLB is going to wait another 20-plus days to make any kind of decision. It sounds like that's a game that they're playing.
Yeah, that's fine.
So they're going to wait until the scenario benefits them, even though
but it doesn't.
Any scenario benefits them if they actually act.
The only scenario that truly benefits them is to start getting their games in before the other sports. But that's already too late.
Right.
No scenario...
Especially because the other sports are building hype up right now.
Yeah, they already have dates set.
Exactly. Like, the NHL doesn't have dates set, but we already know...
Training camp starting, that's good enough. Like, that is a date. It is set.
Right. Training camp is only going to last so many weeks.
Yeah,
maybe
probably like
2.5 weeks.
Yeah. So the point is, there's concrete dates, if not for the start of a season, for actual practices starting up, for teams to get together, for that whole process to start. The MLB is sitting twiddling their thumbs. They've already missed out on their window.
Yes.
And
Yes, yeah.
like the more they wait, the worse it actually becomes. Because if the NHL and the MLB season is going on, I'm paying attention to hockey.
Yep.
Even like the NBA season has a slight bit of hype because they're allowing those, 8 regular season games, and who knows, maybe that's fun. So if the 8 regular season games pan out where the standings at the bottom like switch a little bit and you get some competitive games, that is hype in and of itself. So
yeah, and I tell you this, I'd watch the 8 NBA regular season games well before I watch what the MLB is doing at this point.
Before I'd watch an MLB game, yeah.
Especially because of the MLB as a league screwing over the Players Association. Look, as a Pirates fan, I'm all for like a lot to change between the MLB and the Players Association, like, having a salary cap that isn't based on market, like us.
Yeah, luxury tax is a BS
a universal salary cap for all 30 teams, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've come to grips where there's probably not going to be, at least for a good portion of my lifetime, that kind of stuff. And yet I'll watch baseball anyway because of the product that is out there sometimes. Right. It's kind of hard to support it right now because of
doing this BS.
Because you can't sit here and tell me that the owners of teams like the Red Sox, Dodgers, Yankees, Cubs, that they really stand in need to make so much more money this year. And those are the markets that run things.
But what if it's not the Red Sox, Yankees, Dodgers, Cubs, but it's the Pirates, Indians?
It very well could be. But the fact of the matter is that you haven't heard anything about any unknown GMs or unknown owners who have wished to remain anonymous who have sided with the players or anything like that. There's no reaching out, offering an olive branch at all here.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much, and I think the Players Association attempted to give that olive branch by saying, tell us when and where.
But, I mean, that is an ultimatum, basically.
If
you look at the rest, ending with...
It's an ultimatum, but the Players Association acknowledges that the owners don't stand to make money unless the players give in at all.
I mean, to be fair, the way they worded that is... The MLB is withholding the information needed to see how much of the revenue share they're taking. Which, I don't know if it's true. I'd lean on the side of it could be true, it could not be. Right? That was the big thing. They were like, well, how much does the TV deal, actually make so we can know if what you're saying is what actually is happening? Because... If that's the case, then they have they're completely in the right to ask for that information. Otherwise, tell us when and where is basically like, otherwise we're not going down on salary. They're basically saying, we want to know where the revenue is coming from and where you're getting your numbers against what we stand to make at a full prorated salary for that length.
Yeah.
Right? So, tell us when and where is saying, shorten the season so you can pay us, or give us the information we want, which you're not doing because apparently you have a thing where you just want to hoard all the information, and let us come to an agreement because we can't make it without that information.
Right. And I get all of that. The fact still remains, it doesn't matter if the Players Association did it just for the players to get paid this year or not. The owners don't make any money without any games going on.
Yeah, but
and
the
in
owners...
fact, they stand to lose even in the next... they stand to lose money over their projections in the 2021 season.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a walkout after that, that delays anything to 2022. They stand to lose money over instead of what they're projecting for 2022. The effects of this and their true profit margin goes well past what it would have been for this year alone at this point.
Yep.
They've played this so stupidly to the fact, not to the fact, but to the point where, they could have said, lockout be damned down the road, and whatever happens financially happens there. But we're going to grab the money while we can now. And they didn't.
Yep.
And now they won't. And now they'll have to empty their pockets out even more. And now people who work concession stands and all those part-time jobs anyway. in 2022, we're going to see a reduction in those employees. You're going to see a reduction in those employees next year too, because all of a sudden stadiums aren't going to be able to pay full staffs.
They're the ones getting shafted in this the most.
Right, the people who are absolutely innocent.
Because no matter what,
the money the most.
Yeah, but no matter what, right? They're not having a job for this season.
Right, but it now impacts more than just this season.
Yeah, I mean, you have to see it coming for the lockout season.
Yeah, you have to. But this impacts the season before potential lockout.
Mm-hmm.
Owners have plenty of money to pay part-time employees.
Yeah.
If they wanted to, they could. They just don't want to.
They don't stand to make money.
Yep. Apparently the money that they made that allowed them to buy the team is not up for grabs anymore.
Yep.
I don't know. But with that being said, I'll take any sport back whenever I can get it back. But at this point in time, it's really hard to want the MLB back on the terms that they're giving us.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be an MLB player right now because it just feels like you're being shafted. I wouldn't want to work in an MLB stadium right now. Well, I mean, I guess you're part-time and you're not really working in one anyway, but certainly feels like the league doesn't care about you.
I mean, it feels like the league doesn't care about fans right now.
Yeah.
Because that's first and foremost.
Mm-hmm. I would just say flat out the league just doesn't care.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
I think that's a good note to end on.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
All right.